Hi there, Prayer Plant Girl here. I thought we would have a quick little moment to look at the Amaryllis that I planted in an earlier video. So it was, I think, November 6th or right about then that I did the planting video for the Amaryllis, and I tried something new this year. So we'll get into that in a minute, but I planted 4, I believe, varieties of Amaryllis. 3 were from bulbs that I have overwintered or oversummered, I guess, for the last few years, and 1 was a new bulb that I purchased at the store this year. I have a few different videos on Amaryllis and growing Amaryllis, but I think it's always a good refresher, and this is the time of year when people are either wondering why their Amaryllis hasn't bloomed yet or what to do with it when it's done blooming. So I thought this would be a good time to kind of just have a little refresher on that. So the first thing I want to look at is the thing that I did new this year, and that was I've tried to plant one in a bowl with just rocks and water. And this is something that they say you can do with Amaryllis. Some Amaryllis are actually sold just wrapped in, they just have a wax covering on the bulb, and you just stand them on a special stand with no water or anything, let them bloom, and then you can, they say, peel the wax off and plant the bulb and keep it going like I have with some of my other bulbs, or you can just toss it, which is what a lot of people do with their Amaryllis when they're done blooming anyways. So this is the new bulb that I purchased this year, and I planted it in this bowl with water just really low. It did one day get water just a little bit up, just barely touching the bottom of the bulb, like maybe up half a centimeter, 1/4 of an inch. And it definitely got softer from that. But I noticed right away within like a day or two and dumped the water out, and it didn't get like smelly or anything. It didn't seem to stop the plant from blooming, and it didn't seem to just go into full rot mode, but I don't think I was happy when that happened. The one thing I have noticed though is it never grew roots. I never had any fresh roots thrown out of this bulb at all. It's just remained dried off. If anything, it's maybe even gotten more dried out. It never tried to develop roots at all. But you can see it bloomed. This is actually its second bloom stalk. So I haven't been taking very good care of this Amaryllis because this is the first bloom stalk and I haven't even properly taken care of it. But I know this isn't going to be one that I'm going to be able to save, being that it's so soft. But I thought it was interesting to see how this performed because it didn't put roots out. It didn't anchor into this dish at all. It didn't go searching for water, and it flopped around. Now, this isn't the ideal dish that you maybe would purchase for growing an Amaryllis this way, but I just thought it was interesting that it never got those roots, and I did expect that it would anchor down in these rocks with roots, and it never did. So that made it so it tipped quite easily in this pot. It's had a little bit of a rough life, but this stalk here, I believe, gave me 4 blooms out of this one here, and this, yeah, I cut some of them off, but it looks like I had 4. This one has 5. So it still bloomed well, it still grew well, and it did quite well. But once they're done blooming, this is your Amaryllis care here. You want to cut off. I'm going to take, this whole stem has dried up, shriveled up. But what you normally would do is just cut off the flowers. You see, it just won't stand up. The flowers so that they don't swell in this area here and start to develop seeds in there. So you want to get rid of that. And there's another one over on this side right here, and this side here. And those are all done, finished blooming, and you can just put them in your compost or garbage or whatever you do with your things like that when you cut them off. Now, I'm going to leave these couple of last flowers until they're finished blooming, just because they are nice, but it has started to put leaves up. And so normally, if I was going to try and keep this bulb and save it over the summer to have bloom in my house again next year, I would cut this stem just below where the flowers started to come out once these flowers are done blooming. So I'd cut it down here. So you see that there, just where it kind of starts to notch out to open up for the blooms there. And I would leave this stem to dry and get soft, and it'll get smaller. It'll shrink down like this one has here. So you can see this stalk was this size at one time, and it's shriveled down and gotten smaller, so it sent its energy down into the bulb. And then you can see that this bulb has started to put up leaves here, so hopefully you can see the leaves starting to form there. And I would let those continue to grow, and they'll get quite large and strappy. The Amaryllis plant can actually be quite an interesting foliage plant just on its own, and you can let those continue to grow throughout the winter in your house, just in a nice bright light area. This is when I start to, every couple of months, maybe just give a really light, like half strength, all-purpose kind of fertilizer to my Amaryllis once it's cut back and it's trying to build the bulb for the next season. And I just let it grow. Eventually this stalk here is going to get shriveled and dried up, and then I would just cut it down low, just like I had with the other one there, and just leave the leaves. And I find usually sometime towards the end of the winter, kind of early spring, late winter, the leaves actually just naturally start to get yellow, kind of shrivel up, and the plant starts to look less healthy. And that's the point where you want to just kind of let it have a little bit of a dormant time. So just let it do that. Just cut back on your watering, cut back on your fertilizing, and just let the bulb go dormant. I don't even always do anything special with it. I'll just leave it in the same window, but you could move it to another room because it's probably not looking as attractive. Maybe put it in a cooler space. It's not looking for light or anything at that time. It's just having a little bit of a dormant period. And once the temperatures are well above freezing, they're not going to freeze your bulb anymore outside, day and night. You can take it either in its same pot or maybe pot it up with fresh soil, but I have to admit I've been neglectful in past years and just taken them out in their soil in the same pot they were in and put them outside. But ideally you would plant them out in the ground or in fresh soil in a pot and just let them live outside in a nice sunny spot with regular fertilizing and watering, and let them, again, their leaves will start to grow again. They'll start to come back. They might bloom in the summer for you. I had some that did. And then again, they will probably start to go dormant towards the end of towards the end of the summer, when the days are getting shorter, the nights are getting cooler. And that's when you need to start bringing it in. Even if it hasn't gone dormant, you need to dig it up and bring it inside out to keep it safe from the freezing temperatures. Now I have, on occasion, been known to leave mine outside a little bit long into the fall, and they have had a cold night or two, and they have been just fine to bring in like that. But ideally you'd bring them in before you're having freezing temperatures outside. And then you can just leave them. Don't worry about watering them or anything. If you had them in the ground, you can even just bring the bulb in. You don't need to replant it or anything, and it'll just have a dormant period. Again, if you can find somewhere cool and dark to put it, some sources say to do that, but I have found that it's not necessarily imperative that you do that, but it just needs to have that rest time where you're not watering it, you're not fertilizing it, you're not trying to push it into growth. After a couple of months of that, it's probably going to be time to plant it up to get it ready to flower for your Christmas season. So that's really, kind of a long-winded explanation, but that's what you do throughout the year to take care of your Amaryllis. So right now I have a few in different stages, so I thought I'd show you how they're doing. So this is the first one that I brought out when I planted my Amaryllis. I put some back into a cold, dark area so that I would have blooms continually throughout the rest of the winter now. So this one bloomed before Christmas. Just, I think about a week before Christmas or so, it started blooming. And it's now January 2nd, and it still has a few sparse little blooms left. So they bloom for a very long time, and it's almost done. When this one is done, I am just going to toss it because, like I said, it never put out roots. It's gotten soft in the bulb, and I just don't think it's worth trying to take and carry over through the seasons. So I won't be bothering with that. So we'll get that one out of the way. The next one that I brought in out of the cold was this one here. The white one is just labeled as white. I don't know what the variety is. The whites always seem to be just labeled white when I buy them. This one is Minerva, and I brought the box tags out so you could just see kind of what they look like on the packaging. Just as a refresher, if you didn't see the video earlier. So this is the tag off the box. I just cut the the sides off the boxes when I purchase them so I can have a reference. And this is what the Minerva looks like for me. And you can see it's growing nice and strong and tall. It has both bloom stalks out. I don't know if you can see that. Let me turn it a bit so you can see. So the second bloom stalk is just getting ready to bloom there. You can always tell the bloom stalks are always thicker and plumper, and they'll have kind of this teardrop shape, even larger part at the top. But this one here has 4 blooms on it, and it's been blooming for, I think, almost a week now, maybe like 4 or 5 days, but I think closer to a week. It's quite beautiful. It has mostly just kind of white tipping on the edges. And I don't know if you can see the backs of the flowers, but they're just, I don't know if it'll show up on the camera, but they have almost a white or a lighter color vein up the back of the petals. Right? And I don't know how it shows, but this one, the stem has gotten a little bit blotchy. And if I recall, it did that last year as well, and I was worried it was getting sick, but it never did actually, you know, have problems. So I think the stem on this is just kind of a blotchy stem. But it's, you can see it's growing. Let's see if I can lift it here. It's just in this tiny little pot, this big, huge plant. I had some rocks there just kind of anchoring the pot in this larger pot. But these, so they get really top heavy for what they need for growth. They don't want to be in a huge container. So I don't know, I'm pretty happy with this though. And once these flowers start to fade off, you can see the one on the back here. I don't know how well you can see that. It hasn't even opened yet, right there. So that flower will just be opening soon. So they kind of start with one flower and they slowly open them all up. Usually you get a few days with all of the blooms on one stalk open, and then they'll start to slowly shrivel one by one as it fades. And usually there's a second bloom stalk, sometimes even a third, depending on how big your bulb is. So I'm pretty happy with that. Did I tell you when I pulled this one out? I have a tag in here. So November 15th is when I took this out of cold storage. And like I said, it started to bloom like right around Christmas, maybe Boxing Day. And I said, this is the second. So yeah, it's been close to a week now. So that'll tell you November 15th is when I took it out of the cold. So yeah, it was about 6 weeks probably till it started to bloom. The next one I took out was this one here. And this one has been sitting, this pot has been sitting on my kitchen window. So it's a little bit cooler in that space, and it's north facing. So you can see that the bloom stalks haven't really pushed very far out of the bulbs. I don't know how you can see those there, but there's 2 bloom stalks right here. There's leaves in the center, and you see how short they are. This one has just 1 bloom stalk, it looks like, coming out the center. And then this plant here actually has 2 little offshoot like baby bulbs coming off of it. And this one has thrown up a lot of leaves. But I suspect they are going to bloom much shorter unless I put them somewhere warmer and brighter. And that is the key with Amaryllis. If you want to prolong their lives, somewhere that's cooler is definitely going to make a difference, and the hot, bright sunshine is going to make them come on a lot faster. So if you're in a hurry for your Amaryllis to bloom, put it somewhere really warm and bright. And if you're trying to slow it down because you want to save it for a special occasion, put it somewhere just a little bit cooler that's still getting light, but maybe not such intense light, and that will slow it down for you. So these bulbs are nice and firm. I have hardly watered these. I think I've given them water, and just a dribble of water, each of them like twice since I planted them in the beginning of November. So just every like 2 or 3 weeks, they've just had a little dribble of water, and that's it. They don't need a lot until they are finished their bloom cycle and ready to put on growth in the bulb. But yeah, I'm looking forward to this one blooming. This one is Prancer. So you can see there, Prancer is white with red striping, though I've had it almost half and half some years, and I can't remember if these bulbs are some of those Prancer bulbs that did that, but it's usually more on the white side with kind of a pinky red, but it can be more like 50-50 red and white. I'm looking forward to this one blooming. And then this one is Vixen. I have just a little, I always stick a little sticky card in some of my plants just in case there's any little tag-alongs in the soil or in the bulb or anything. But this one I took out December 4th, and it has been in a little bit warmer, a little bit brighter room. So you can see it's gotten taller than these over here, and it's grown a lot faster. So when I say it's been out, that's just like I had them in my garage, which is fairly dark and quite cool. So it's just staying like just a few degrees above freezing. But this one is, again, it has a few little leaves here, but the bloom stalk is the most prominent. Sometimes they will throw the leaves up first, but usually it's the bloom stalk that comes first and the leaves come later. That just gives you a good idea, I think, of how they will, how long they'll take to bloom once they're in a nice warm place, and the difference in a warm, sunny, really bright spot and just a bright, light, cool spot that's not intense sun. Like this one's in a room with south sun, this one's in a room with north sun, and it's right on the window, whereas this is back a little bit, so it's getting the heat. Now let me show you Vixen, I think is what this is. Yeah. And Vixen is a really deep red flower. I find it almost looks like velvety. It's just an incredible flower, so I'm really excited for this to bloom. I'm surprised because it's looking pale back here, so hopefully I don't have this one mislabeled, but it'll be really nice. So with this progression here, I have these will go for another couple of weeks probably yet. And by then, this one should definitely be blooming by how swollen the blooms are. And then this one again, so I should have blooms for several months yet on my Amaryllis. So hopefully this gave you some ideas as to, you know, how long it takes for them to bloom after they've come into the warmth or just been planted up. The difference between keeping them in a warm space and a cooler space, and, you know, maybe what to expect if you don't plant them in soil. If you didn't find the information you're looking for, maybe you have an Amaryllis that you'd like to make into a cut flower, or because they get these long stems on them and they're a little bit top heavy, sometimes they break. I do have a video on what you can do with your broken stem and how to keep it alive in water in a vase and keep it standing up nice and straight for you. So I'll put a link to that video for you so you can check it out, and we'll see you in the next one. Thanks for watching. Bye.